You know, you watch that video, and it says a lot that we can sit here in 2023 in a room of 1,000 people watched a 7-minute video about something that I would argue 5, 7, 9, 10 years ago had been pretty hard to capture, right? And it speaks to the fact that it's getting easier to talk about it. It's getting okay to talk about it. And that's a big deal. That's a big reason why we're here. So you get inspired by something like that. We hope you certainly do. It is amazing to hear about the great work that's being done, and especially the Hope Squad and the hope that comes with suicide prevention and how it's actively at work in the community, especially with our kids. I got 2 kids right in the middle of it. You know, I got one at college, I got one at high school. And you wonder every day when I over the years look at Tom and Ellen's story, but for the grace of God, go any one of us, right? So to help us better understand, to get a little better educated on all this, I promised you we'd do that. We want to hear from the man who you heard a little bit in the video from him, who runs Point at the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation. Would like to bring up the man, Matthew Vereecke. He's now been at the foundation for just over a year, and in that time, he has worked to expand the programming that the foundation has offered. He's helped to grow the board, primarily been focusing on walking in the footsteps of Tom and Ellen to carry everything forward. And Matt came to the foundation, as you heard a little bit in the video, from the education background, where he worked as a teacher. He was a principal, president, and eventually superintendent. Matt did graduate from the University of Notre Dame, received his master's degree in education from the very same university. I understand he earned his doctorate at the University of Oklahoma. He says he is thrilled to be part of the great work that's being done at the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation and is excited to lead the organization and bring the hope to those who need it. So beyond proud to bring to the stage Matt Vereecke. Matt, come on up.
This Memorial Day, my wife Elizabeth and I were out for a walk on the Trinity River Trail. We were having this conversation about something or other, and we were about to cross this low-level dam that leads back to Tanglewood when we saw 2 e-bikers in their 70s start to head down the opposite side of the dam. Elizabeth was in this mid-sentence, and she suddenly just stopped talking, because even 50 feet away, she could tell that something wasn't right. We heard this cry, and all of a sudden the woman shoots over the edge of the dam. She hits the side, she lands in the water, her bike's on top of her. Elizabeth didn't hesitate. She took off on a dead sprint down our side of the dam, and we were there in maybe 10 seconds. The woman's companion had parked his bike, he was in the Trinity, he was doing everything he could to hold her up, but he was struggling. The water was deep enough that he couldn't get leverage on the bike. So I jumped in, Elizabeth ran to call 911 to direct him down to the river. The woman was bloodied, she was unconscious. Her companion and I were able to get the bike off her. I was able to pull her to the side and get her out of the water. We got her situated, we made sure that nothing was broken, that she didn't have any life-threatening injuries, and not long after the EMTs arrived and took over, and fortunately, she made a full recovery. A lot of things had to come together so a life could be saved that day. If it hadn't been Memorial Day, if the water had been higher, if I'd been shorter, any of those things could have changed the outcome. What I know for sure, however, is this. The 2 people who went into the water weren't going to be okay on their own. Someone needed to be there to help them. It didn't matter how smart, how rich, how much they loved each other, anything else. It was a moment when they desperately needed the community. Look, this is a dramatic story of how a life gets saved. But the truth is, there are people all around us, even in this room today, who are drowning. Some of them may be struggling so much they cannot even ask for help. And in those moments, maybe their family, their parents, their spouses will step in, but sometimes that just isn't enough. Sometimes you need the help of someone else in your life, a stranger even, to step up. Sometimes you need the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation. See, I work with people every day who save lives. Christy, David, Latasha, and Rachel, they train people in this community to recognize the signs that somebody is drowning, and they teach them how to step in. They work with Hope Squads with businesses and churches, and they currently oversee 119 schools, 108,000 students, a conference, community block parties, and they're collectively responsible for training over 35,000 people in Fort Worth and QPR. I work with Tom and Ellen, who built this foundation from nothing into the force for good that you just saw in this video. A foundation that supports research by bringing together the top minds in suicidology to Fort Worth for the summit, a gathering of incredibly talented researchers who believe that we can solve this thing if we work together. Tom and Ellen have provided through the foundation an additional $500,000 in research projects, many of them right here in Fort Worth, to learn about depression, the brain, and suicide. And finally, I get to work with community partners that allow us to train businesses and first responders in methods to protect those around them, including at places like Cook Children's and BNSF Railroad. See, we're a foundation that fights to bring the conversation out of the darkness and into the light. But we couldn't have done any of it without all of you. This is our 10th luncheon. It marks 10 years of sorrow, but it also showcases 10 years of hope and change and bringing this community the tools necessary to prevent tragedy. I'm going to ask those of you who came to the first luncheon if you would just please stand right now. You were here at the very beginning. You helped this foundation become what it is today. Just please stay standing for just a second here. and what will become tomorrow. And I also want to call out in a special way those of you who have been with us every day since then. So if you've come to all 10 luncheons, please remain standing. You want to see heroes? These are the heroes. When I got up here last year, I told you we were going to launch the summit, we were going to expand our offerings into businesses and churches, that we were going to continue to grow the number of Hope Squads that we served. We could only do that because of the generosity of all of you, and we can only expand with your generosity in the future. To all of you here today, just know how grateful we are for you supporting this mission, for changing the lives of families and people you may never meet, and for helping us to make a world where suicide is never the choice. I'm going to go off script here for just 10 seconds. Don't want Tom to get too mad at me. We got to stay real close on our schedule. We got some data yesterday, which I think is really important. And every year we get the data on suicide numbers, and every year we kind of have to get up here and we say, hey, look, it's more bad news, it's more bad news, it's more bad news. But this year it was different, because we found out that in 2022, out of the 4 major counties, Tarrant, Dallas, Collin, and Denton, that are in North Texas, one of them had a 5.4% reduction in suicides. I'll give you a hint. And the other thing that we got is that for 2023, we actually have seen, through November, a 50% reduction in suicides among youth. I can't promise you it's going to be like that next year, but I can promise you it happened. It's not happening in other places. So thank you for being part of the solution, for making this happen. I'm going to turn it back over to Doug.